My wife of 10 years cheated on me with my best friend, and then secretly forged my name to steal $200, $0 of our savings. Now she's claiming I'm the one who lied to get a bigger inheritance, and we're headed for court. It all started with a gut feeling I couldn't shake. You know that weird, creeping sensation in your stomach when something's just not right? Yeah, that. My wife Lisa had been acting strange for a few weeks, avoiding my eyes, canceling plans last minute, and always seeming tense whenever I brought up our usual weekend routines. At first, I figured she was just stressed at work or dealing with some family stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? But then I noticed her phone kept pinging at odd hours, and she was quick to hide it whenever I walked into the room. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. It was a Thursday evening when I decided to check her phone. I know, big breach of trust, but I couldn't help myself. I was just curious, really. I figured if she was hiding something, I'd find out. I didn't expect to see what I saw. Her messages with someone named Mike were way more than friendly. They were flirty, suggestive, and there were multiple texts about meeting up, sneaking around, and even explicit talk about what they'd do if they ever got the chance. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I kept scrolling, trying to process what I was reading. I saw pictures, hidden in a folder labeled work stuff, of Lisa in bed with Mike, half naked with her hand on his chest. The worst part. The dates matched up with recent weekends. She'd been cheating on me with my best friend Jake. I couldn't believe it. I thought I knew her, I thought I knew Jake. Turns out nothing was what I thought. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. How long had this been going on? How had I missed all the signs? I kept asking myself if I'd been blind or just stupid for not noticing sooner. The betrayal hit hard. It wasn't just the fact that she cheated, though that alone gutted me. It was the deception, the lying, the fact that they'd been sneaking around behind my back for months. And, to top it off, I found out she'd been secretly forging my name on bank documents, pulling out $200, $0 from our savings account. She stolen that money right under my nose, claiming she needed it for some emergency that never existed. That was the final blow. I was furious. Every ounce of trust I'd had in her evaporated in that moment. I felt duped, betrayed, and so stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. She'd gone as far as to steal from us financially. And my best friend, he was supposed to be my brother, the guy I shared everything with. And he was in on it too. I kept thinking about the times Jake had looked me in the eye, smiling, acting like a good friend. All the while, he was screwing my wife and helping her steal my life savings. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed answers, truth, no matter how ugly. The next morning, I sat her down in our living room, feeling like I was walking into a war zone. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Lisa, what's going on? Who is Mike, and what's this about the money?" Her face went pale for a second, then she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, it's not what you think," she said, crossing her arms. "You're just paranoid. Mike's just and those texts are nothing. You're overreacting, and the money, I needed it for the house, for the kids' education. You're always so suspicious. Maybe if you paid more attention, you'd see I'm doing everything for us." Her words felt like knives. I knew she was lying, but hearing her deny everything so easily made my blood boil. I could see the sneer on her face, the way she was trying to manipulate the truth to fit her narrative. I felt a strange mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me like this? I wanted to believe she was innocent, but the evidence was undeniable. I was staring at a woman I thought I knew, and I realized I was living in a house built on lies. That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one I wasn't prepared for, but I knew. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed to figure out what to do next, and I knew things would never be the same again. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at Lisa the same way. Her excuses felt hollow, like she was just throwing anything at me to keep the spotlight off her. I was furious, but underneath the rage was a deep, aching hurt. How could she do this? With Jake, my best friend, the guy I had trusted with everything. We had shared everything, our dreams, our struggles, even our secrets. And now I was supposed to believe she was just working late or having a rough patch. Yeah, right. I decided I had to dig deeper. I started digging through our bank accounts, emails, texts, anything I could find. That's when I discovered the full extent of her deception. The money she'd stolen 200 had vanished from our savings account. It was gone, transferred somewhere I couldn't trace easily. But I knew the bank would have records. I also found emails where she had been planning the whole thing, talking about how she'd need to fake my signature to get the money out. She forged my name on documents. I couldn't believe it. She'd gone that far. I was stunned. I felt like I'd been punched again, this time in the gut. I kept asking myself how Lisa could do this to me, her own husband, her partner for 10 years. I'd always thought we were solid, that we had a future, but this, it shattered everything. I was angry at her for cheating, yes, but also furious at myself for not noticing sooner. How had I been so blind? How had I missed all the signs? And then there was Jake, my supposed best friend. How could he betray me like that? How could he sleep with my wife? I'd always trusted him, considered him family. Now I saw he was just another snake in the grass. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I needed to confront Jake. I wanted answers. I called him that night, voice trembling with rage. Jake, what the hell is going on? Did you sleep with Lisa? There was a long pause on the line before he finally spoke, his voice defensive. Look, man, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Lisa came on to me, and I did push her away. We got caught up in some stupid thing. I didn't think it'd go this far, I swear. His words were weak, full of excuses, but I knew better. I knew they'd been in this together, scheming behind my back. I felt sick. The betrayal was overwhelming. I thought I'd lost my best friend and my wife in one blow. It was like my whole world was crashing down around me. I couldn't understand how I'd let this happen, how I'd been so blind. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held it in. Instead, I told Jake to stay away from me. I needed time to think, to process what I'd uncovered. And I knew I had to decide what to do with Lisa, whether to fight for the marriage or cut her out completely. The next few days were a blur. I isolated myself, trying to piece everything together. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the pictures of her and Jake in bed. The betrayal felt like a weight pressing down on me. I started questioning everything I believed in. Was our marriage even real? Was I just fooling myself all these years? The trust I'd built with Lisa was gone, replaced by suspicion and anger. But I also knew I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. She lied enough. I decided I needed proof, hard evidence, before I made any decisions. I hired a private investigator to look into her dealings. I wanted to know exactly where that money went, who she'd been talking to, and if there was any other hidden stuff I'd missed. I also planned to confront her again, this time with facts, not just accusations. I was tired of her spinning stories, trying to make herself the victim. I wanted the truth, no matter how ugly. While I waited for the Pie's report, I started gathering my own evidence. I went through our financial records, saved every suspicious email, and took screenshots of her messages. I also kept a journal, writing down everything I felt, every new revelation, every lie she told. It was the only way I could keep some control over the chaos. I knew this was just the beginning, but I was determined to find out everything. I had to. I owed it to myself to get to the bottom of this mess, even if it meant tearing my entire life apart. A few days later, I finally got the report from the private investigator. Honestly, I wasn't ready for what I saw. It confirmed everything I'd suspected, and then some. Lisa had transferred the $200 to an offshore account, one she'd set up under a fake name. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The Pie also found messages between her and Jake, full of flirtation, plans to meet up, and even talk about how they'd split the money once she got her hands on it. It was all there, proof that they'd colluded, that they'd been working together to betray me from the start. Seeing all those documents and messages made everything crystal clear. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was stealing from us, from our future, from everything we'd built. I felt sick to my stomach, but also strangely relieved. Now I knew the truth, no matter how ugly. I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. I had to act, and fast. The next step was confronting Lisa again, this time with everything laid out in front of her. I arranged to meet her at our house after work, feeling a mixture of anger and resolve. When she arrived, I didn't hold back. I showed her the bank statements, the emails, the wire transfer receipts. I laid it all out on the table, watching her face turn pale as she realized I had the evidence. "You lied to me," I said, my voice cold. "You cheated on me with Jake and you stole $200, $0 from our savings. You forged my signature to get the money. How could you do this?" She looked at me, her eyes flickering with panic and defiance. She tried to spin some story about how she was just desperate, how she needed the money for the house, for the kids, everything but the truth. She insisted she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that Jake had pressured her, but I wasn't buying it. Her reaction made me angrier. That bitch had the nerve to cry, to pretend she was the victim. She told me I was paranoid, that I'd never understood her, that I'd driven her to this. She claimed she was only trying to save the marriage, but her words rang hollow. I saw right through her. She was a liar, a thief, a manipulator, and I realized I'd been a fool for so long. I told her I wanted a divorce. I couldn't stay married to someone who'd betrayed me so completely. I also made it clear I was going to press charges, criminal charges for forgery and theft. I had enough evidence now to show she'd committed fraud, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I also told her that I'd be taking back control of our finances, shutting down her access to our accounts, and hiring a lawyer to handle the legal side of things. She yelled, called me names, accused me of ruining her life, but I didn't care. She pushed me too far. In the days that followed, I started the process of separating everything. I moved out of the house, took my belongings, and filed for divorce. I also contacted my bank and the police to report her theft. The legal process moved quickly once I had all the evidence. I also set up a new bank account, just in case she tried anything else. I felt like I was waking up from a nightmare, but I also knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I went from feeling betrayed to feeling numb, then angry, and now I was just exhausted. I kept asking myself how Lisa could do this to me, to Jake, to our family. The trust was gone, evaporated in a flash. I struggled with feelings of sadness and loss, mourning what I thought was a happy life that was now just a pile of lies. But at the same time, I knew I had to move forward. Staying stuck in anger or despair wouldn't do me any good. I've come to realize that sometimes the biggest act of self-love is walking away from something that's toxic. I still love her in a way, but I also see her for who she really is, someone who lied, cheated, and betrayed everything we had. I've learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. So now I focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece and making sure I never get like this again. It's a hard lesson, but it's one I'll carry with me forever. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. Once the divorce papers were filed and the legal wheels started turning, I found myself alone in a way I never had been before. No more Lisa, no more Jake. Just me and the quiet, cold reality of what had happened. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, the stolen money, Jake's betrayal. It was like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been so blind to the signs. The financial damage was a blow. That $200, $0 was a lot of money, our safety net, our kids' college fund, our future. And now it was gone, stolen by the woman I'd trusted most. I wasn't just angry, I was furious. I felt betrayed on every level. And yet, amid all the chaos, I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't let her win, not in the way she thought she could. I made a promise to myself to rebuild, to start over, even if it hurt like hell. In the weeks that followed, I focused on the legal process. The courts moved quickly once I had all the evidence. They froze Lisa's assets, and I worked with my lawyer to ensure I'd get back what I could from the stolen money. I also filed for full custody of the kids because I didn't want them caught in the middle of this mess. They deserved stability, and I knew Lisa's actions wouldn't be good for them. It was a tough decision, but I had to prioritize their well-being. Meanwhile, I leaned on friends and family more than ever. Some told me I was a fool for trusting Lisa so long. Others offered their support in silence. It was a strange feeling, being betrayed by those closest to me and then realizing who truly cared. I also started therapy, trying to process everything I'd been through. Talking to someone who wasn't involved helped me see things more clearly. I realized I'd been holding on to hope, hoping Lisa would change, hoping it was all a mistake. But the truth was, I had to accept that she had chosen her path, and I couldn't change her. One of the most surprising things was how I began to see my own role in all this. I'd been so focused on making the marriage work, on giving her everything she wanted, that I ignored the signs of trouble. I was too trusting, too naive. I'd always believed in honesty, but I'd overlooked the small lies, the evasiveness, the secretive behavior. I learned that trust isn't something you give blindly, it's something you earn, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I also learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to protect yourself first. Despite all this, I still had hope. Not for her, not for the marriage, but for myself. I wanted to rebuild what was broken: my confidence, my sense of security, my future. I started focusing on my career again, taking on new projects, and even thinking about moving to a new city. I needed a fresh start, away from the pain and the memories that haunted me. I also made a vow to be more cautious, more aware of the people I let into my life. Trust is fragile, and I refused to be naive again. The hardest part was facing the realization that I'd been by someone I thought loved me. That betrayal cut deep, and it's left scars I know will take time to heal. But I also know I can't let it define me. I'm learning to accept what happened, to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, and to focus on rebuilding the life I deserve. It's a long road, but I'm determined to walk it, one step at a time. Now I spend my days working, seeing friends, and trying to reconnect with myself. Every day is a struggle, but it's also a chance to grow stronger. I've realized that the only way out of this mess is through it, and I'm finally starting to believe that I can come out on the other side, better and wiser than before. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I won't let betrayal define me. I'll rebuild, I'll heal, and I'll move forward, alone if I have to, but stronger than ever. The process of rebuilding was not easy, and honestly, some days I felt like giving up. But I kept telling myself that I owed it to myself and to my kids to keep moving forward. The legal battles over the money, the house, and custody dragged on for months. Every hearing, every document reminded me of how deep the betrayal went. I was angry at Lisa for everything she'd done. But I was also angry at myself for trusting her so blindly for so long. Still, I refused to let her win by breaking me completely. During this time, I started focusing on myself more. I threw myself into work, probably too much, honestly. It was the only thing that kept my mind busy. I also started working out again, trying to get some control over my body and mind. I needed to feel strong, to reclaim some sense of power I thought I'd lost. I even began dating casually, just to remind myself what it was like to connect with someone without all the baggage. But I was cautious. I didn't want to get hurt again, and I knew I had to heal first. One of the biggest turning points came when I finally sat down and talked openly with my kids. They're young, still under 10, but they sensed something was wrong. I explained that mommy and daddy were going to live separately for a while, and that I loved them no matter what. I promised to protect them and make sure they felt safe. Seeing their innocent faces made me realize I had to do everything I could to shield them from the chaos. It also made me more determined to get through this mess, not just for myself but for their sake. As the months went by, I started to see small signs of progress. The court ordered Lisa to pay back a portion of the stolen money, and I got some of it back through the legal process. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. I also secured full custody of the kids, which was a relief. I knew Lisa wouldn't be an easy person to deal with, especially since she was still trying to manipulate the situation, but I was prepared. I had my lawyer, my evidence, and a resolve I'd never had before. The most surprising thing was how much I grew during this ordeal. I learned to trust my instincts more, to pay attention to the warning signs I'd ignored in the past. I became more cautious with who I allowed into my life, realizing that not everyone has good intentions. I also learned that love isn't enough. Sometimes, it's just not enough to fix the damage that betrayal causes. I saw that true strength comes from within, from standing up for yourself even when everything feels like it's falling apart. I still have scars from what happened, and I know I'll carry some of this pain with me for a long time. But I also know I'm stronger now. I've faced the worst betrayal I could imagine and survived. I've learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to confront the truth head-on, no matter how ugly it is. I've come to accept that I can't control what Lisa did or what Jake chose to do, but I can control how I respond. I choose to move forward, to rebuild my life on my terms, and to be smarter and more cautious in the future. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the warning signs earlier. I should have trusted my gut more. But I also understand that sometimes, no matter how careful you are, life throws you a curveball. The key is how you handle it. I'm still healing, still learning, but I'm finally starting to see a future beyond the betrayal. And honestly, that's the best gift I could have asked for after everything I've been through. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've changed and how much I've learned. Betrayal like this leaves scars, no doubt, but it also forces you to confront your own strength, to what you thought was real, and to rebuild from the ground up. I've come to understand that trust isn't something you give blindly anymore. It's something you earn, and it's fragile as hell. I don't take the people in my life for granted now, and I'm more cautious about who I let in. The biggest lesson I've learned is that sometimes love isn't enough to keep a relationship afloat. People can say, "I love you," all they want, but actions speak louder than words. Lisa's actions proved she didn't love me the way I needed her to. Instead, she chose her own greed, her own lies, and her own betrayal. That realization stings, but it's also freeing. It's freed me from the illusion that I could fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. I've also learned the importance of standing up for myself. I was a pushover for a long time, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the good husband. But that only made me blind to what was happening right under my nose. Now I know I have to set boundaries, to trust my instincts, and to protect myself and my kids first. Because if I don't, no one else will. Moving forward, I'm building a new life, one where I'm more aware, more cautious, but also more hopeful. I've started focusing on my career again, pushing myself toward new goals. I'm reconnecting with old friends, making new ones, and slowly opening my heart again. It's scary, but I know I deserve happiness and stability, not the chaos I endured. Most importantly, I've learned that healing takes time. There are days when I still feel angry, days when I feel like crying, days when I question everything. But those days are fewer now. I'm learning to accept what happened, to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, and to forgive Lisa, not for her sake, but for my own peace. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing what she did. It's about releasing the pain so I can finally move on. So yeah, this was one of the darkest chapters of my life. But it's also been a turning point. I've survived betrayal, theft, heartbreak, and I'm still standing. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm finally in control of my life again. I've learned to trust myself more. I've learned that even in the face of betrayal, life does go on, and sometimes it's better than before. I've found a new sense of purpose and a renewed hope that someday I'll be whole again. And that in itself is the real victory.